Button for the radio.
All right, I did. I think we are live streaming on YouTube. Hello, everybody. It's so good to be back. How long we been gone? 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And my dilithium crystals are getting a little stronger, but we'll just see how it goes tonight. As long as I keep taking my dilithium crystal. I can't show the name of it. My dilithium crystal. Let's see. Somebody's. Oh, you got them. Yeah, I can't. You can't advertise. But hello, everybody. It's good to have everybody with us tonight. And we are so glad. We're thankful to be back. And we're glad to see you back. Those of you listening by Power Faith Radio, we thank you so much. I would do my Power Faith Radio thing tonight, but I don't think my voice is going to let me. But it's so good to have all of you with us tonight. Maybe the groups that's listening in Texas, let us know how many is there. And now, if you're watching this via YouTube, we thank you so much. Come on over to the Zoom room and spend some time with us. But while you're over there, that's okay too. Comment, like, and subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell and share that video with all your social media platforms. And after we get through tonight, Terry usually will post tonight's class on a Simple Walk a Facebook and group, and that's where we are. And we're sponsored by Outreach Noah. I didn't say that, did I? Outreach Noah on YouTube.com. And just real quick, you can send us an email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. So now that I got all that out. So Terry.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Doing good. I guess more or less how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing a whole lot better. I'm doing better. I feel like I'm doing better. Again, I said earlier that I lost my voice for a week or so, and my wife loved it. Great. But I was able to text her everything I needed. Now, whether she read it or not, that's another subject. But anyway, we made it. We made it work. She made it work. You see, I've got no hair, right? Okay, go ahead, Terry. Greet everybody.
All right. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us again here at Outreach Noah on our Wednesday night class. Yes, it's been 2 weeks. Feels like it's been longer. We're just glad to see and hear that Scotty is doing a whole lot better. He's got his voice back. Scotty's got to have his voice.
Got to have my voice.
Got to have his voice. He's the engineer down there, and he's got to be able to run the show. But tonight in our Zoom room, we have Ronald and Amuela and Bob. Of course, Mr. Scotty in the engineer room. And we got Sabra has joined us tonight, and Thomas and Veronica and Karen and Michelle has joined us tonight. Anyone want to come into the Zoom room, you can go over to the A Simple Walk Facebook page. There's the links for the Zoom room there. Links for the radio station and the YouTube channel as well. Everyone's welcome to come in that wants to come in. You don't have to have your camera on. You can just come in and join the group if you want. Tonight, Shem willing. So we got, it's gonna be the Creator's will. The last 2 weeks, Scotty needed the rest. And so tonight we're going to be on page 77 of our 7 Gates of Righteous Knowledge. We're going to begin with the contemplation of the Prohibition of Theft. And we've got quite a bit of stuff here to share tonight with this. It's got some good information. Looking forward to it. If, like I said, have your pencils and pens and notepads, whatever it is, you take notes. You might want to take notes, write down questions. If you have any questions, feel free to get them over to Scotty through the email at outreachnoah outreachnoah@gmail.com. I guess that's how it is. I normally don't say that. That's generally Scotty's line. So I'd think about it for a second and everything, but you can get the questions over to him. And as we gather them up, as we've done here in the past, we'll take a couple of weeks and we can do some Q&As, answering questions, have some good discussions. Scotty, you about ready?
I am. And I think Ronald just posted somebody to add to the Sadaka list. And Ronald, as soon as I get through with the rabbis that's on our list tonight, I'm going to get you to say that name if you would, and we're going to add them to the list. Again, it's so good to be back. We've had a lot of people that has contacted us over the past couple of weeks and said, they're praying for us, and we thank the Creator for everyone's compassion and passion and helping us and pray and getting over it. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't like being sick. I don't like it. And so anyway, here we are tonight, Baruch Hashem. So we're going to start off with our tzedakah time tonight. We always start off with giving Tara and I's main teacher, giving tzedakah for him and his wife. That's Pesach and Shira Sherbo. They live in Sfat, Israel. And we also have Rabbi Moshe Shulman on our tzedakah list tonight. We're giving a tzedakah for his recovery, thanking the Creator for his recovery, and also for his endeavors. We're giving tzedakah for there. And also Rabbi Rafi Mullet. Did I say that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, we're giving tzedakah for him and his endeavors tonight. Also, now go ahead, Ronald. Who was that you was had on the tzedakah list?
Diane Bankier, my sister.
Okay,
She had a bit of heart trouble over the last year or so, and now they've discovered a reasonably sized spot in her lungs, and it's looking like cancer.
Okay, we're giving tzedakah for her tonight. And then also we have Wendy Shepherd on our tzedakah list tonight. We're giving tzedakah for Wendy Shepherd. Also, Nadine Akins. We're giving tzedakah for Nadine tonight. Also, William and Tina Lyons. Now, William and Tina Lyons are my employers, and they are both going through some things, so they asked that we give tzedakah for them tonight. Also for, and I think I'm going to say this right, Ronald, you'll have to help me on this, I think, or somebody else. It's Shlomo Zellman, and that's Rabbi Singer's father. Did I say it correctly? You know if I said it correctly? Okay. And that's Rabbi Singer's father. We're giving tzedakah for him tonight. Also for Chrissy Seaton, we're giving tzedakah for Chrissy tonight. And also for Ty Thompson. Now that's her grandson. Is that correct? That's Chrissy's grandson. Giving tzedakah for him tonight. Also for Warwick Marshall, we're giving tzedakah for Warwick tonight. Also, somebody always sends in $1 for you, Amuela. Now, this is not $1 for you. This is $1 from you. And it's going into the tzedakah box tonight. And we know the Creator will bless you for that. And then also they send in one for Veronica Port, and also send in one for Thomas Schaus. And also we have on our list tonight Ronald Dickman. Ronald, how are you? Well, I'm going to go back for a minute. Thomas, tell us how you doing. How you feeling? You've been in the hospital a little bit, and tell us how you're doing.
Oh, well, I'm feeling better than I was. But yeah, I got more good days and bad days, but I'm getting better. I'm working on it. I'm actually listening to the doctor this time.
Hey, Hashem.
But
right.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, and I'd like to thank everybody for the prayers too.
Great. All right, Ronald, how are you doing?
I'm fine at the moment, thank you.
Okay.
Appointment in the near future, hopefully. But yep, otherwise I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great to hear. Also, we have on our tzedakah list tonight Clifford and Harleen Hool, and then we're giving Thanksgiving tzedakah. Now, Wendell texted just before we started our meeting tonight, and he's not able to be here tonight. He's worked all day. He's watching on YouTube, and we always like to give Thanksgiving tzedakah for Mary Parsons, and that's Wendell's wife. And if he was here, I would say something like, I wish it was snowing where it'd be a little cooler here, and his wife would get to shovel snow. But I'm not going to say that. He'll catch that after a while and know what I'm talking about. So that's a little inside joke there. And so on our blessed memory tzedakah list tonight, we have my dad, Gavin Giles. We just passed the anniversary of him leaving this walk of life, going into the next. And also someone I know all of you are going to know during this time we were out, Sally Justice. Sally Justice. It was the anniversary of her passing, and so we're giving tzedakah for her tonight. Let's see if this is somebody. No, okay. And so, again, we thank everybody for participating, and we want you to remember those blessed memories, especially. And if you go out, just watch the video. I'm going to say them again. That's Gavin Giles and Sally Justice. And then,
radio.
all right, I did. I think we are live. Wait a minute. Something is going on here. Hello, everybody. It's so good.
You're starting over again.
I started all over again. I don't know what happened there. I think my YouTube called up to me and I thought I had it muted, but I'll go back and fix that in a minute. There's something always going on when it's live. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, we were having real fun before, wasn't we?
yes. We was hearing double of everything. So, all right. On that note, let us pray. Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. Our King, do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right. Christopher came on this in here. So, all right, Terry, if you're ready, I'm going to put you now. Ronald and I were noticing something new on, and Ronald, I'm going to try this tonight. I'm going to put that on there, and then I'm going to go speaker view. Everybody's muted except me. I'm going to mute, and then Terry, you can jump in there and start talking. And let's see. I got to mute me. Terry.
Yes.
Get away.
You know, it scares me when you said you found something new and some new button to push. I mean, ain't no telling where we're going to go. One night, I think we went dark. Oh, you're going to have to practice these new buttons, the week before we come on. Oh,
I always like to do them. I always like to do them live because when I'm by myself and I hit a button, I don't know what it's doing.
No,
I got everybody else in here.
You could always call me, say, "Hey, get on."
Hey, get on. Let's hit some buttons. So
there we hit some buttons. We hadn't done that in a while.
I know it. All right, go ahead, Terry.
All right, again, did I hear an echo? Okay. No, we were having echo problems a while ago, so now I'm hearing echoes. All right, greetings, everyone, again tonight. Welcome again to Outreach Noah class. As I stated before, if you're now joining us, we're on page 77 of the Seven Gates of Righteous Knowledge book by Rabbi Weiner and Dr. Shulman. And we're on page 77, paragraph 5 down here. We're going to discuss the contemplation of the prohibition of theft. This first sentence of this contemplation is very good. This morning, as I was going through everything again, some more stuff kind of popped up that I want to go through just off of this first sentence. And it says a person should contemplate that what God has given to another person, he has no need for. A person should contemplate that what God has given to another person, we do not have need for it. What God's given our neighbor, we have no need to take anything of what is his. And so as I was thinking about that this morning, it reminded me some things that Rebbe Nachman of Breslev taught, that one of my favorite rabbis, Rabbi Lazar Brody, wrote a book on emunah, which is the Hebrew word, which is translated as faith in English. But faith, the English word faith, is very weak word compared to the Hebrew in all the details that it stands for. Some night maybe we'll have a short little class on some of these Hebrew words and their English counterpart, and we can go through and show you how the Hebrew is so much more stronger, because it's the original words, that God used in his holy Torah. And so, but Rabbi Laser Brody wrote a little bitty short book called Emunah and the Noahide, and he talks about basically in just English is faith, and understanding these laws through faith. And so, I wanted to go through this little section here of his from this first sentence. A person should contemplate that what God has given to another person he has no need for. And so I just wanted to go through a little bit of this here of what Rabbi Brody wrote on faith. Faith and the prohibition of theft. And so I think we're going to see some things here that maybe some maybe already practiced, but some might be new to them. Some of this I'm going to read to you here in just a moment. My wife lives by this in the job she has. And I was just telling her before class tonight that how much, I admire her, and she's a great example in our family of this example we're going to read about here in just a few seconds. Rabbi Brody writes out, he says, Rebbe Nachman of Breslau explains in Likutei Moharan, which was his teachings, that theft and dishonest dealings are mutually exclusive with the emunah, or faith. He goes, how? A person with faith deals fairly with others and is careful not to touch a cent that doesn't belong to him, will always negotiate fairly within the parameters of the Torah law, of the prohibition of prohibition of theft. He goes, why? The individual with the emunah, with faith, believes that his or her income comes from the Almighty. This is something my wife lives with in the type of job that she has, where we both work at, because we both work for a Toyota dealership, and she's in the behind the scenes on the computer. If you call or email or anything like that in and have inquiries about stuff, she's the one that kind of gets the information. And certain part of her job, she gets these little bitty bonuses on. And the majority of her bonuses has nothing to do with what actually her job is. It's what somebody else does. She has no ball in those games. And yet every month, she believes that God gives me what I need, what he wants me to have. And if something happens, she goes, well, he didn't want me to have that. And my wife has got a very strong faith in that. And like I said, and I admire that. And I was thinking about that as I was going through that this morning. And Rabbi Brody goes on, he says, therefore, transgressing the Almighty's commandments would certainly not contribute to a better income. See, some people feel they got to be dishonest. Got a couple of those I work with. They feel like they've got to, do things dishonestly to better their bottom line numbers. But he says the Almighty, therefore transgressing the Almighty's commandments would certainly not contribute to a better income. Our sages call this fair negotiation, negotiating in emunah. Intrinsically, emunah connotes both faith and adherence to the Almighty's commandments. He says, this is so laudable that our sages tell us that the first question in heaven, which this is taught by the sages of Israel, the first question in the heavenly court asks a person when he or she departs from the physical world is, did you negotiate fairly with your fellow man? How was your business dealings with your fellow man? Is the first question you're going to be asked when you appear before the heavenly court. He goes on and says, King David teaches us that when a person eats the fruit of his own labors, they should be happy. In Psalms 128, 2. I wanted to go over that with you. I went and I looked this up this morning, was going over it. I had one of those mornings where I didn't want to go to work because I got in here and got to studying and I had to leave and go to work. But in Psalms 128, I'm actually going to go through verses 1 and 2. 128, 1 and 2, it says, the Song of Ascents. Praiseworthy is everyone who fears Hashem and who walks in his ways. When you eat the labor of your hands, you are praiseworthy. The sages teach who walks in his ways means most people do not walk vigorously. Hear the wording of the sages of Israel. Most people do not walk vigorously and purposely on the path established by God. Although they seem to follow his ways, they're acting out of mere habit. Isaiah says that this people draws near to me with their mouth and with their lips. They honor me, but their fear of me is a habitual routine of men. That the fear of God is praiseworthy only when one walks in his ways with sincere conviction and commitment. So we think about these laws and we talk about these things and well, oh yeah, I don't steal, I don't, but it's more than that, and we're going to get more into that when we go back and study these more in depth, because these are just contemplations. But this is strong words that most people do not walk vigorously or purposely in the path of God. When you eat of the labor of your hands, Ben Zoma said, who is rich? He who is happy with his lot. As the scripture states, when you eat of the labor of your hands, then you will be praiseworthy in this world, and it will be well with you in the world to come. And this ties into our subject of the prohibition of theft. And what we're looking at here is that you eat of the labor of your hands because you're out, you're working, you're earning. And when you're doing that, you're not taking from your fellow man. And that's what the sages was talking about. It says satisfaction with one's lot in life has a lot to do with the prohibition of theft. If you're satisfied, you'll have no desire to take that which is not yours. Satisfaction with one's lot in life is a major barometer of one's faith. Such people are making the statement that they are satisfied with how the Creator runs the world. They never do anything dishonest, for they know that violates the divine will. So think about this: when you're at work or when you're doing business dealings and doing anything to where you could be dishonest. Dishonesty violates the divine will of the Creator. Just the thought of violating the divine will is abhorrent to anyone who believes that every breath they take, every cent they make, comes from the Almighty. He goes on, Rabbi Brody goes on, he's got this little section that says the thief's statement. The thief, robber, swindler, or whatever the violator of this prohibition might be called, makes the clear statement that he or she does not believe that their income comes from above. Maybe they have a general belief in God, but don't believe he has given them what they need or deserve. They therefore violate his laws, which limit them to fair and honest dealings, and take the laws into their own hands to accumulate more money. Therefore, Rebbe Nachman calls the lust for money a false god. To satiate their greed, people who crave money will do anything, including idolatry and thievery. Back to Rabbi Weiner. He says, continue on here on page 77, although at times it is hard for a person's mind to hear or to agree with this, he should know that this is the truth. He should not desire the possessions and the success of others, but should rather endeavor on his own to reach his godly ordained potential. From this contemplation, a person will come to recognize even more so the divine providence on every single person, which has exact design for each person. He should also strengthen himself to constantly trust that God will provide the means for his designated needs. Anything, Scotty, before I go to the next section, because I'm going to cover some more passages. We good? All righty. Rabbi Weiner continues, says, the prohibition of theft is unique in that it affects almost every aspect of a person's life. Since humans must deal with each other in buying and selling and exchanging, the main focus of this commandment is to accept and to honor another person, his needs and his possessions, as the sages have taught. Rabbi Yosei says, let the money of your fellow be as dear to you as your own. Theft causes corruption and deteriorates and endangers society. In this section here, I want us to go back and look at some things where it says here where the main focus is to accept and honor another person's needs and possessions. I want us to look at the issue of theft from the beginning. I've covered this in the past, but I thought it'd be a good time to do just a refresher for those who might be new and listening. In Genesis chapter 2, raise my mic up here. In Genesis chapter 2, in verse 16, we're going to be looking at Genesis 2:16 and also verses 3 through 6. I believe. I might look at my notes here. Yeah, 3 through 6. In Genesis 2 and verse 16, this is the primary passage for those of us of the nations. This few words here establishes God as the supremacy. He is the creator. He is the one that made the heavens and the earth and everything that is in it. He has the right to make rules on how he wants his creation to work. Not only that, we also see this not only points to his supremacy, it also here is the sages is also tells us that this is the beginning of man's moral training. It's found in this passage. It's where he began to work with that being he created as Adam and began to work and instill with him morals and ethics. Verse 16, it says, and Hashem God, or Hashem Elohim commanded the man. He commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat thereof. This is the beginning of his moral calling. What we have here is what is interesting is the Creator set boundaries. He set a boundary right here. He set a boundary. This is yours and this is mine. Just as Rabbi Weiner stated here, that we must strengthen ourselves to trust that God will provide the means for his designated needs. What we see here in this first section, in the verse before that, verse 15, and Hashem God took the man and placed him in the garden to work and to guard it. And then he commanded him. And part of the command here is, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. See, we see here an example with the first man that God provided for all of his needs, everything that he needed. Every tree in the garden is freely yours. He provided everything. There was nothing else that he needed. Then he said, but this one tree over here is mine. You don't need of it. He set a boundary. You don't need this. This is not yours. And so we're getting right here. We have boundaries being set, and we're being taught here about this whole issue. We can learn from this passage here is leave your neighbor's stuff alone. It's not yours. God gave you what you have, and he gave your neighbors what he has. We need to leave these things alone, and we can see what is being said here. But what happened? What happened? In chapter 3, verse 6, let's see which one I'm going to go through here. Yep, verse 6, we have, and the woman perceived that the tree was good for eating, and that it was the delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable as a means to wisdom. So what do we see? What we learned earlier from Rabbi Brody, that we shouldn't be desiring our fellows' things. We don't, there's no need to desire or to look at what God has given someone else. Because when we start doing that, it can lead us to violating the commandment of theft. But that's what we have here. The woman perceived that the tree was good for eating and was a delight to her eyes, and that the tree was desirable for a means of wisdom. So she was looking at something that wasn't hers, wasn't given to her in Adam. She was desiring it. And that desire, in her case, and she took the fruit. She took that what was not hers. She crossed the boundary. And so we can see here with what Rabbi Weiner is saying in that section, that again, that we need to strengthen ourselves and to constantly trust that God will provide the means for his needs. Now, I was reading in another book of mine that I bought, and it's not, has anything to do with the book as a whole, with what we're studying. I do recommend it. My daughter's boyfriend recommended it to me. If you enjoy some real life things, it's called The Mysterious Case of Rudolf Diesel, the man who invented the diesel engine. It's a really, really good book. And as I was reading it, there's something that was in here that reminded me something that I had read, and not only read, that one of my teachers had talked about one time in a class that I was in. We've been reading about how we need to trust in God, that he's given us everything that we need. There's nothing that our neighbor has that can fulfill the need that what God hasn't already given us. So we should leave those things alone. This is on an individual level. but this is also on a national level. When I read this, this reminded me of a class that I was in, something that was stated about the nations. And in this book on Rudolf Diesel, it has a lot of historical chapters of what's going on with, like, I believe this chapter is on the Kaiser Wilhelm II. And it's talking about his coming to power and different things that's going on in Germany at this time in the late 1800s. I think it was the 1890s. And he's talking about Wilhelm II and the different empires also of Britain and France, Austria and Hungary and Russia and Germany. The Ottoman Empire is going on through America was not yet a major power. And he goes on and says, in this fraught a period when it was still customary for the major European powers to invade neighboring territories to acquire the resources they lacked. And his class was talking about on a nation's faith on what gives that nation to be able to survive, that he gives every nation, that there's no need when one nation goes in after into another nation to take its resources, that is national theft. That is national theft. And that we see that all the time. And I have to tell you, when America goes in and he goes after these countries, after it's oil, it's theft on a national basis. In this case, it was Germany was at raising up at the time, because this is what's going on at the time in this book, that when Rudolf Diesel was alive, and he was a counterpart with the Rockefellers, the builders of Standard Oil and stuff. And it talks about how all of this worked together at the same time, even though they didn't know each other and they were worlds apart. But it was interesting here that it was customary for major European powers to invade neighboring territory to acquire the resources they lacked. That is national theft. The national. So not only do we as individuals violate the prohibition of theft in that format, our nations do that. And therefore brings the judgment of the Creator on the nations. And we have that in the situation with Noah at the time of the flood. Scotty, anything before I go into a little bit here on Noah? Ooh. I run out of desk space for all my books. We have here the situation at the flood, and the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, one of the great sages of Israel, in his commentary on the flood, he says on Genesis chapter 6 and verse 13, God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled. The Hebrew word here is Hamas. It's translated most of the time in English as robbery or violence. It's primarily robbery. The Ramban translates it as injustice, that the earth was filled with injustice through them. He goes on and explains, he says, God gave Noah the reason for the destruction of the earth. Now, up above in verse 11, it says, now the earth had become corrupt before God. and had become filled with injustice. The word corrupt there in the Hebrew, as we've taught in the past, denotes sexual and idolatry, sexual immorality and idolatry. Injustice was robbery and violence. So the Rambam says, God gave Noah the reason for the destruction of the earth as injustice, and he did not mention the other sin of corrupting the of ways, because he dropped down here in 13. He says, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with injustice. He didn't say that the end of flesh had come before him because of sexual immorality and idolatry or corruption, but injustice, Hamas. The Rambam goes on and says, because injustice is known as a public sin, whereas sexual immorality is a private sin. The sages of Israel, however, has said, for that reason only injustice is mentioned here, is that it was specifically over injustice that the decree was sealed and not over sexual immorality. The reason why this sin sealed the fate of that generation over all others is because it is a law that is intuitively understood, and the people had no need for a prophet to warn them about it. And we have a perfect example of that in the book of Jonah. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff here tonight with y'all guys. So I hope you're taking some notes and go back and listen to the video. But believe me, I had fun going through this stuff this week. Just I get into loving doing these kind of studies and where it takes me. Because see, this stuff is not here in the Seven Gates. It's in my notes though, in the on the side margin now. But as I'm studying and I'm pondering and meditating on this is where my meditation. Oh, this sentence leads me here, and this sentence leads me here, and I'm going back and looking at these things. And so we see here in the book of Jonah what's very interesting, because see, the Ramban said God did not need to send a prophet to warn them against the injustice, against the robbery they were doing at the time of the flood, because it was something that was internal. The theft is an internal thing. It's part of who we are as beings who carries the image of God within us. So what's interesting is God sent a Jewish prophet to a non-Jewish city. Sometime we'll go through this book. Scotty and I done it once before, was it? Took 20-something lessons then, probably take us longer now more because but we've done it before. We can do it again if everybody wants to do it sometime. We'll go through the book of Jonah here on Outreach Noah. We did it for our teachers' YouTube channel years ago. So what we have here is a Jewish prophet sent to a non-Jewish city. And the message that was there, that he came there to overturn. And what's interesting is the sages teaches us the word there, overturn, is translated overturn, means that there was some grace that could be involved, meaning they could be overturned physically and be destroyed, or they could be overturned somewhat like in a spiritual way and be saved from the destruction. And so that's what's interesting. But what's even more interesting is that when it came down to the message given to the people, it didn't come from the prophet. And I didn't learn this until I studied this book deeper several years ago. Because we have here in chapter 3, when the word had reached the king of Nineveh, the word being that in so many days, the Creator is going to overturn the city. Means it could be destroyed or it could be overturned, and if the people would turn. When the words reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne and removed his robe from upon himself. He covered himself with sackcloth and ashes and had it propagated and declared throughout Nineveh. This is the words of the king. Now, I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to skip over here to the subject we're talking about tonight. This is the words of the king. Everyone is to turn back from his evil way and from the robbery that is in their hands. The prophet did not prophesy to Nineveh that they were going to be destroyed about theft and robbery. This proclamation came from the king, and they knew what they were doing was wrong. See where we're talking about here in Genesis, God didn't send a prophet because they knew it was a public sin that they already knew inside that was wrong. And so we have an example here with Nineveh that it was the king that declared to turn away from the robbery which was in their hands. And they did. They did. Matter of fact, they did to the point that the sages said that beams that were stolen and a house was built was torn out of the house and returned back to its owner. That's how far they actually went to turn away from robbery. They were returning that which they stole back to the owners. And because of this act that they did, he didn't do it from sackcloth and ashes. He said, it says that he saw their deeds. In verse 10, and God saw their deeds that they had repented. Their repentance included the returning of stolen objects. And therefore the city was overturned. They were overturned by righteous acts. And so this is what would have happened at the time of the flood if the people of the flood, if some leader would have stood up and said, turn back from your evil way and from the robbery in your hands. God didn't need his Jewish prophet to tell them this. They already knew this because it was part of the laws that came down from Adam. It was built inside of them from creation. Where would we be at today if some king on the other side of the flood would have stood up and said, hey, whoa, wait. We've got to stop this. Stop this corruption. Stop this robbery. Start returning that which we stole. What would have happened? He would have saw their deeds and not sent the flood. But here in Nineveh, we have a perfect example of what happens when we do what we already know we should be doing. There's some things that God does not have to tell us. And that's the beauty of the 7 laws. Pretty much the 7 laws that were given from Adam to Noah is, in essence, we shouldn't really have to be told a lot of these things, especially when it comes to robbery, when it comes to murder, because we know these things already. And he doesn't need to send a prophet for us to do what we already know we're supposed to be doing. Rabbi Weiner goes on and he says, in order to justly accept others as equal to yourself, you must honor them and their property. And this requires inner insight. And positive feelings toward others. This comes from the recognition that you, exactly like your fellow man, your fellow human being, are created by the same one God. See, your neighbor was made by God and you were made by God. And God gives your neighbor what he needs, gives you what you need. And what it says is that when a man who eats of the labors of his own hand, he's praiseworthy because he's satisfied for the lot that God has given them. That we are created by the same one God for a general duty and purpose. Therefore, no individual is so more important that he can say that his needs comes totally before the needs of another. Hence, keeping this commandment, the prohibition of theft, keeps you continuously aware of the Almighty, who is continuously creating and watching everyone and guiding everything with his divine providence for the specific purpose that he expects from mankind in general and each person in particular. Another focus of this command is to contemplate that being just and truthful is not only for the upkeep of society, but also for your own sake and your own benefit. Being truthful is being correct with yourself. And this makes you a fit to recognize your own true virtues, capacities, needs, and duties. The only way that you can maximize your abilities is by doing your duty and being the person that God created for the specific purpose that he has planned for you. By cleaving to his commandments, these 7 commandments, and the general mode of righteous lifestyle that he has designed for mankind. But you need a vessel in which to receive this pattern of life, to accept it, and to manage it, to manage to live accordingly. This vessel is your dedication to truth and honesty. Scotty? I know I had a lot there tonight, so
No,
let's discuss it or
it was good. There's a lot of conversation going on about it. I was carrying a conversation on my iPad and my phone at the same time. So, hey, show us this, the book again that I'm going to put you back on speaker view.
which one?
The one you're basically reading out of, the 7 gates.
Oh,
Let me put you back on speaker view.
you see that? A square moved over. There we go. It's the 7 gates of righteous knowledge, Rabbi Moshe Weiner and Dr. Michael Shulman.
And while you're showing that, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about this because somebody asked this. Is this a book that any individual can just pick it up and start reading it and understand it, or should they be led through it? Should they kind of?
I'm going to say yes and kind of no. Mostly yes, you can. There are some things in here. Understand that this Rabbi Moshe Weiner is a very wise rabbi. He's written the Divine Code, which a lot of this is based off the Divine Code and some other Jewish writings of Chabad by their great teachers, descendants of the Baal Shem Tov, which we can get into later. There's some places in here that understand the rabbis, they're more involved with their people because basically for 2,000 years they've been persecuted. So they've had to draw inward instead of more outward, because every time they stuck their head out to teach us this kind of stuff in the past, they got it cut off or sent to a camp. So they kind of withdrew to their own communities, which is made them very strong. And we're in a different time period. We're in a historical time period that's never been like this in man's existence since the creation of Israel at Mount Sinai as the priestly nation. They're our priest. God made them. They're our priest. They're our priesthood. We're the lay people of the world. And there are some places in here that speaks a lot more of Jewish custom and tradition in a few places, because they've not been involved with us as much in some areas. When we get into the chapters on modesty, because modesty is so different from nation to nation, and we're not held accountable to certain strictness that Israel is, because they are the priestly nation. And they have seen that there's a few places in here that's kind of contained more from their side of the fence, but you understand that's what they know best. And so we've got some awesome people, awesome Noahide people that's contacted and talked to them, and they're going to hopefully do some updates in this, and they see these areas. So if you come across something, if you get this book, and I do recommend it, it's really good. 7 Gates of Righteous Knowledge, the spiritual knowledge and faith for all righteous Noahides or Gentiles, which we're all Noahides. Noahide is basically comes from B'nai Noah, the children of Noah, which is a biblical term that's used in Genesis. It's just more of a modern term today, easier to say than just the Hebrew for some people. But you decide to get this, read it, study it, have your notebook. If you got questions, write them down. If you got questions that you write down, send them to Scotty and myself. Contact us. We'll be glad to help walk it out. We're going to work when we get to these areas in our class. I'll be going through these areas because they do stand out a little bit, which it's not a big problem. But there's not enough there to say no, don't get it. Now the divine code, now that's a different story. That book is really, it is a Torah. It's a legal document. I want to say it's like a what we would consider a legal document, like you see books in the back shelves of lawyers' offices that covers cases and things like that. I kind of put it in that kind of format. And it can kind of be, I'm going to use the words of Bob over here. There are places that is complicated. He likes to talk about the complicated things. We have some good discussions on Monday nights. There's a group of us that gets together and talking. We can have some real good legal discussion. We spent 2 classes on a couple of words. I think we had a couple of words that we ended up spending. I think what was a duty bound obligation and the word command. What's the difference between a duty bound obligation and a command? I think we spent 2 weeks talking about those couple of words. But yeah, the divine code, it's good to go through with more than just yourself. You need some people who've been through it and before and been around a little bit, because it's kind of a legalized, not legalized. It's a legal document. It states a lot about law, which is what we're supposed to have. It's called halakha in Hebrew. And once you understand the word halakha, it takes the bite out of the word law. It teaches us how we're supposed to live more in a straightforward way. Is that okay, Scotty?
Yeah. One of the things that I want to explain to somebody here, and we're going to kind of get into this conversation that a couple of people are having here. So there are some books that, yes, you can pick those up and you can read those and get a moral and ethical common denominator, if I can say it that way. But then there are other books. Now, let's say you're going to school. If you're in,
this is a good simple read one.
Yes, simply Noahide. That I'm here. I'm gonna put you on speaker view here in a minute. And hold on, I'm gonna put you on speaker view here just in a second. Let me. Right, just keep it up. Keep it up.
This is by our own Veronica Port. This book here is, she's written this in everyday language, and it's really a good book of just simple things. And I'm actually working with Chris's help. I'm working on some stuff that I'm going to do a writing myself on simple righteousness, what that is. And there's really a lot of simplicity to
And
it.
I
That's the book I was,
later Rhodey's book.
yeah, that's what I was reading from tonight.
Yeah.
In the Noahide. But
And
there are some books, just like if you was in school, and there are certain levels you go to, first to sixth grade, whatever. You can't just pick up a trigonometry book and start reading it and expect to understand it.
right.
If you're in first through sixth grade, you got to have you have to be taught and move into that area. And I think that's one of the reasons here in the Western world, mostly. Now, I've never been around the world. Okay. But I do know that for some reason there has been it's been assumed that we are able just to pick up any book and draw our own conclusions from it. And this will actually get us in trouble. Mm-hmm. But there are books that if we will allow ourselves to be taught, just like we were in school, if we allow ourselves to be taught, then we will come out with some great knowledge.
Right. Like nothing I cover is from me. If I have an inspiration, I will say this something, that I got out. This is what I got out of it. I was inspired, but everything that I cover comes because I've got teachers that I've been under for a long time. I started learning under a rabbi in 2010 and some things, and he was teaching me the basics of certain things on just learning, the basics of learning from the Torah worldview and not the Western religious. You got to lay down your religious worldview that you've learned here in the Western world to actually pick up the Torah worldview, because the Torah worldview is not the Western religious worldview. It's not. It's totally different. It's this view that came from the Creator at Mount Sinai, and He gave it to Israel as their heritage. It's theirs, like it says in Psalms 147, 19 and 20, I believe it is, that the Creator did not give the Torah to the nations. He gave it to Israel for us to turn to them. And there's prophecies of us turning to them in the last days to learn. Zechariah 8:23, Isaiah chapter 2 are two areas specifically. Jeremiah 16:49, I believe it is another one that talks about the nations turning and coming to the Creator through the Jewish people to learn the Torah. And we're kind of in the early footsteps of that now. So when I'm teaching from what the sages teach. And even the Jews, they're not permitted to change the words of the sages nor the prophets. What they've taught is bedrock that you can stand on. And it's just they've learned how to apply the Torah throughout the centuries as life changes, technology changes, situation changes, but the Torah doesn't. It's forever. God says it's eternal. And in his own words, it's eternal. And that's what we learn. That's what we're learning. That's how it's very interesting how we're learning how theft all the way back at the flood, actually all the way back at the garden. If you think about it, in Genesis chapter 2, all the way from the garden to the flood, and then how the Ramban talks about how there doesn't need to be, like on this issue of theft, the prophet doesn't need to be sent. Then we learn that example out of the book of Jonah, that it wasn't the prophet that came in and that said to put away the robbery of your hands, but it was the king of Nineveh that said that. And so we have that example. It's just it's fascinating when you just follow it through.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Scotty.
All right. Well, I'm about to lose my voice, Terry. Can you tell it? So
Need some lemon drops.
I got some. So, all right, Terry, I'm going to bring us to a close tonight, if that's okay.
All righty.
All right. Let's see. Thomas had a question here. Hold on just a minute. Thomas had it. Let me go over to the chat. I think Thomas had it. Let me find my chat button. They moved my buttons around. Thomas had a, where's he at? So you can desire something, just not something that someone has.
Correctly. Desire in itself is not evil. Desire in itself is not evil. But what you desire could be. If you desire someone else's possessions, that new four-wheel drive that's high enough that you can walk under, or that, Mercedes Benz sitting over in the driveway, or their house, or that new John Deere lawnmower, or your neighbor's wife or husband that you see. Anything that your neighbors, if you desire it, that can lead you to the wrong. But desire in itself is not. I mean, because he even talks about desire in a positive way, like in the Song of Solomon, when a husband and wife desires each other, and things like that. The Creator has some things to say, even through the Psalms with King David, talking about desire, that he fulfills the desires of everyone. We all have desires. It just depends on which way you're pointing that desire, where it becomes evil, either evil or good.
You brought up about that big truck. I know I've crossed a threshold of age. For today, my employer's grandson was taking me over to a job, was going to look at something, and he's got one of those big truck, and he had to help me in it. I couldn't get in it. Well, then I knew it was bad when I told him, I said, you're going to have to come around here and help me get out of this, because I don't want to fall. So he had to come around and help me out, as well as help me get in it. So I need something I can fall out of, levels of the ground. So
there you go.
I just thought I'd throw that in there.
But yeah, desire in itself is not evil. It's just what you're desiring could lead to evil or wickedness, or it could lead you, to good. Desiring to have a good job, desiring to have a good family, good relationship, desiring to have a relationship with, your fellow man that's correct, desiring the pathway of God. Those things are good things to desire. Matter of fact, the Hasidic sages of Israel have some teachings on from Rebbe, I believe it's from Rebbe Nachman or the Baal Shem Tov, is that when you actually begin to desire to do repentance, you've already turned in the right direction just from having that desire.
All right, Terry, I'm going to bring us to a close.
All righty.
We want to thank everybody who come and is with us tonight. The Georgia group said they had 39 tonight, and they enjoyed the class thoroughly, and they actually purchased this just so they could go through it with us as we was going, and so we appreciate them so much. And all of the people that's listening through Power Faith Radio, we thank you so much. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube, while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to that channel, hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up, and share those videos with all your social media platform. As Terry said earlier, you can send us an email. Just send it to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Go over to Facebook page, A Simple Walk, and there you can kind of join a group. And Veronica's, I'm going to tell you something. Veronica Port has a group, Simply Noahide, and that book that Terry held up. Veronica, you got a lot of people in that group. Every time I go over there, I mean, when it gets past 10,000, how many you got in there, Veronica? I mean, it's thousands. It's thousands of people.
I only have about 1,500.
1,500. Well, when it starts putting that K after it, I can't read it no more. I just, when that K goes in there, it's okay. That's like if it's a 0 or below 0 on temperature. Well, don't tell me it's 22 below. That means it has to warm up 22 degrees just to get 0. Let me know when it gets above freezing. Tell me it's cold outside. When it gets above freezing, then go ahead and let me know. I'll be okay. So, all right, I'm going to bring it to a close right there. Everybody, we thank you so much. And if Hashem willing, we will be back next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. New York time, and we'll look for you here. So long.
Bye-bye.